So Philly is in a great situation.
This really makes you think, is someone going to try to get up to 2? In the span of just 26 minutes Friday afternoon, the Dolphins traded the number 3 overall pick in this upcoming draft to the 49ers, netting 2 first-round picks in 2022 and 2023. Then the Eagles traded the 6th pick over to the Dolphins, with Philly settling in at the 12th overall pick. Woo! It was wild. And by the way, it's only just beginning, as we are now officially a month away exactly to the draft. The rush on quarterbacks has already begun as we welcome you to NFL Live today. A little bit later on, we'll tell you why Mac Jones might actually be a great fit for the 49ers schematically. So stay tuned for that. Dan Orlovsky is here. We've got Jeff Darlington and Mina Kimes. And let's dive right into it. Jeff, what do you think about the deals and the direction that the Dolphins are going?
Well, Laura, when you look at the Miami Dolphins, you knew going into this that they were willing to trade that 3rd overall pick. And what I had been told is that they were looking toward the future. They weren't afraid of the idea of adding first-round picks in future years. Part of this is about giving Tua time to develop, putting some weapons around him, but also getting the ammunition needed. Say Tua doesn't work out in future years, you can still get to the top of the draft when you need to replace him. But for right now, it's about building around Tua.
Yeah, I like what Philly did. I look at this 3 ways. With all the picks that they got Friday, 1, you build around Jalen Hurts and see what he is this season if he's a good player. 2, if he struggles, you package those potential 4 first-round picks over the next 2 seasons and go get a Russell Wilson or maybe Deshaun Watson. Or 3, if Jalen struggles and that price is too rich, you move up in next year's draft and go find your quarterback.
So San Francisco is not the first team to trade this many first-round picks for a quarterback in the draft. They are the first team, however, hypothetically, to trade that many for the 3rd quarterback taken off the board. We know it's very likely 1 and 2 are going to be QBs, and to me, that speaks to the quality of passers available in this draft because San Francisco is willing to give that much up.
Yeah, this will likely be the 6th time in the last 15 seasons a team has traded up to select a quarterback in the first 3 overall picks. If the Jets move on from Sam Darnold, none of these QBs will have lasted more than 5 seasons with the team that drafted him. It's wild to think about. This was the highest pick the 49ers have ever traded up to get in the common draft era. And the 49ers spoke moments ago, explained why they had to make a move. Here's Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch.
So, yeah, you got to take risks. And this is a risk we were willing to take. We looked at how our 4 years have gone. We looked at how we want the next 4 years to go. And we looked where we're at in the draft and the options that are there. And that's why sitting there looking at this stuff since January and going all the way through the process, we felt pretty strongly we're going to get left at the altar sitting there at 12.
We went to ownership, said, hey, you know, things are looking good. We'd like to make this move, but you know, we also don't want to say goodbye to Jimmy. We think Jimmy, we've shown we can get to a Super Bowl with him. We can play at a high level. And we don't think those 2 things have to be mutually exclusive. And so the opportunity to trade up and possibly get a guy that can be a big part of our future and keep Jimmy, who we're very high on, and is, you know, I think some positive things are happening this offseason for. You know, that's kind of the plan we arrived at. And we're very excited. It was, you know, a stated goal that we needed to come out with the quarterback position being stronger this year. And I think we've put ourselves in a opportunity to make that happen with this move.
All right, so we'll get back to the Jimmy G piece and all this. As I mentioned, this press conference going on just moments ago, another thing that was said, Kyle Shanahan said the Niners feel comfortable with 3 quarterbacks in this draft leading into it. So when you hear that, when you hear what's said about Jimmy G, Dan, your reaction?
Listen, I think that this move was made for Mac Jones. I also think that there's some people in that building that are very much so intrigued by Trey Lance, the kid out of North Dakota State, the talent that he has. And that's where Jimmy G would come into play, because if they draft Mac Jones, Jimmy G is gone, because you are getting a younger and probably similar player for a long period of time. But if you draft Trey Lance, then you likely keep Jimmy G. But make no mistake about this, like, they needed to upgrade at this position, both with availability and with performance. Jimmy Garoppolo has missed 23 starts over the last 3 years. That is way too much for an organization to be dependent on. And he's also thrown the 3rd most interceptions over the last 3 years when it comes to percentage-wise in the NFL. So they looked at this as the opportunity, upgrade, both with availability and the performance at the position. I actually agree with it.
All right, so you're saying, just for anybody that might have missed it, that they did this to get Mac Jones, which is fascinating because Mina on the show on Friday said that would be like going from Jimmy G to Jimmy H. So, Mina, these moves that the 49ers have made and to get up to 3, is it a good move for them?
Yes, it's a bold move. I like it. I understand why they did it. In some ways, I see this by the trade from San Francisco as a response to what the Rams did. And there are a lot of similarities, right? You've got 2 of the best offensive play callers, brilliant young minds in the NFL, in Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. We have seen over the last few years, they can take any quarterback, put them in their schemes, and make them look good. But the Rams got tired of good, and that's why they were willing to trade away a haul and absorb a lot of dead money to move on from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford because they wanted to be great. San Francisco, same thing. Tired of good. They wanted a higher ceiling. They wanted to approach greatness. And we'll talk later in the show about what greatness looks like, what that quarterback might be. But the reality is, Laura, they might like Jimmy G, but if they loved him, they wouldn't have done this.
Well, Mina, you make a very good point here. But what's also interesting about this, you heard Kyle Shanahan say pretty transparently, we were afraid of getting left at the altar at number 12. And if you do project to the future, you think about what the 49ers gave up with those first-round picks in the future, the 49ers are a confident bunch. They're sitting here saying, we're not going to be in a position where we're picking 12th in the first round in future years. Yeah. This is our best shot to get as high into the top of the draft to get that quarterback than any year we expect to see in the future. So from that standpoint, I understand why Kyle is saying we're taking a risk, not as a desperate team, but instead as a team on the rise, looking at that quarterback position and prioritizing it.
And Jeff, I also think it's important to point out the difference between Kyle Shanahan, say a Sean McVay, or even a Kevin Stefanski, because they all come from the same tree. Kyle Shanahan is a play-action passing play caller. There's a difference between play action and bootleg. He calls more play action than anybody in the NFL, and that means like you're inside the tackle. Why does that fit with a guy like Mac Jones? Because 1, field vision has to be great. 2, you've got to have fantastic in-the-pocket movement. 3, you've got to have the snap release. And 4, you've got to listen to your feet. We're going to dive into that at the end of the show. And that's a big deal because everyone continues to talk, well, athletically, does he fit it? Well, athletically, he doesn't need to because they're not calling as many bootlegs getting him outside the pocket. That's when you need the athleticism as a runner. That's when you need the more powerful arm. Kyle also calls play action for chunks, 15, 20, 25-yard throws. Not the 45, 50-yard bombs downfield that Sean McVay does. That's a big difference. There is a massive difference. Look at this. This is play action within the pocket that they are trying to get. Chunk throws, deep ends, big-time crossers, hard ball play action, ball out on time, where other offenses are more dependent on moving the quarterback outside of the pocket, throwing the ball 50 yards downfield. That's not what Kyle Shanahan does.
Mina.
You're totally right, Dan, but I think the question here, it's sort of a chicken or egg thing. Is that the offense Shanahan's called because those are the quarterbacks who have been available to him, whether it's a Kirk Cousins or a Matt Ryan or a Schaub or a Jimmy Garoppolo, or if he had a more athletic quarterback at his disposal. I mean, you can read his comments about Josh Allen when he tore them up last year. He's seen his defenses get shredded by the likes of Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. Would his offense evolve in response? Like, you know what? You understand what I'm saying? I totally agree with you about the play action and the nature of the offense, but I also think it's a reflection of the quarterbacks he was working with.
The only thing that I have a feeling with the athletic quarterback when it comes to Kyle is, was he scarred from the RG3 experience with his father, right? He saw the mobile quarterback. He took the league by storm. They used him as a runner, and then the injuries derailed his career. And I've always thought, like, that going to get him to be hesitant to utilize a more mobile and athletic quarterback in the quarterback run game?
Yep. Jimmy Garoppolo's missed a bunch of games, and he's not a mobile quarterback. Like,
that's a fair point.
You know, you can't count on health either way. I think we've seen that in the NFL. I mean, and the Mac Jones, Trey Lance debate, it cuts straight to the heart of this because you are fundamentally making a statement about what you think matters, what you think you can, like, optimizes your offense in 2021, and that's what makes it such a fascinating debate.
It is fascinating because at number 3, you've got to think about who's going to be there. Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. I mean, it is wild.